Here we go again.
That's right, hurricane season is upon us.
Are you someone who's been dreaming of moving down to Southwest Florida to live that never-ending summer, but you just can't get past the fear of hurricanes?
Well, stick around because this video is just for you.
All right, so it's that time of year again, the beginning of hurricane season, and you're probably frustrated. Every year you have those grandiose dreams of moving down here, but then you hear the news, you hear about storms, about damage, that extreme price of living down here in Southwest Florida, so you just can't overcome your fear. Caleb, we can relate to that, right? We were just like them just over 4 years ago, right?
Absolutely. It wasn't that long ago, but just a little over 4 years ago, Lanir and I, we were in your shoes. We wanted to come down here and live this beautiful Florida life. So we decided, heck with it, we're doing it. Heck with hurricanes, we don't care, we're going. So we sold our respective businesses, packed up our families, and moved down here. And ever since, we've been living the best life, and we've been helping families just like you move down here and live the great life we have.
That's right. If it's our first time meeting, hopefully not. Hopefully you've been tuning in for some time. That, we're both realtors here in the Venice, Florida and surrounding area. We're also relocation and new construction experts. We understand the journey of the buyer. We understand the investment. And we understand, most importantly, the emotional toll it can take on a family moving down here if you're not prepared. And we understand that. When I moved down here, I can ultimately and honestly say I wasn't fully prepared. But what I did know is my motivation. And it's probably very similar. I knew I couldn't take any more cold winters. I knew that I just couldn't take another season of seasonal blues, those long, gray, dark days. The fact that in spring you'd have 4 seasons in one day. It was such a teaser. Such a psychological roller coaster that I knew that I was my best self when I visited the beach, and I just took that leap of faith. I turned to my wife and I begged her, please, let's do this. Let's get down and live that never-ending summer.
Mine was very similar. We were on a vacation down in Marathon, Florida, and we were just sitting there looking at the water, enjoying it, soaking up this beautiful sun, the great days. We could see our kids outside having fun. And we just said, that's it. It's time. We've got to get back home, sell the company, move down here and enjoy this. And I don't care what the cost is. Hurricanes, bring them on. It's worth it just because the sunny days far outweigh those few random hurricanes that we get. It's we've been here 4 years. We've had 3 hurricanes. It's not the greatest numbers. We admit that. But these last 2 hurricanes for us, they weren't a huge impact. Yes, there were some areas that were impacted with that storm surge. That does happen. But for the most part, this area with last year's hurricanes did incredibly well.
Let's talk about what it feels like, what it looks like. Hurricane Ian was our big event, our first big experience with hurricanes. We've experienced small, minimal hurricanes living in Maryland, but something that really, not something you lose sleep over, not something that you batten down the hatches. But Hurricane Ian was definitely a huge learning curve for me. I have to be honest, I was fearful. There was times that I thought I lost my home, that I made the biggest mistake of my life. How can I put my family in harm's way? Now, were we in harm's way? Never was there a second we were. We decided to leave town. I bought an older home closer to the beach because my wife and I were beach babies. I might be somewhere in the middle since I've been here after 4 years, but we decided we wanted to be near the beach. We were willing to take that risk, but we also decided early on, because of our proximity, that we would leave town every time a storm came. We'd close our accordion shutters and we just, put it all in fate. And we had 3 different destinations that we choose depending on which way that storm is going. And we left it all in the hands of, up above and also the insurers. Caleb, you're a little bit different, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on the flip side of that coin, where I decided that we wanted to stay. So in the first hurricanes, my home when I moved here, it didn't have great hurricane protection. So I had to actually board up my house, board up all of my my lanais, and we rode it out. And I'll be honest, it was pretty freaking scary. With those 200-mile-an-hour plus gusts of wind whipping through, looking out, peering out the doors, opening it up just so you could see what's going on. It was a bit scary, but we made it through. Everyone was fine. We were out of electric for 5 days. We live kind of close to the beach too. We're about 2.5 miles from the beach. We didn't have any crazy storm surge that hurricane. We just had a lot of rain. What was it? 18 to 22 inches of rain in 24 hours. So there was a lot of rain, but overall the area did incredibly well from a flooding standpoint. All of those ponds, they did their job. The irrigation, or all of the sewer lines, they did their jobs, and there was very limited flooding with that storm for sure.
You see, along with our own personal testimonies of living down here, taking it really serious because the safety of our family is the utmost of importance. So that's something we take in consideration. But what we understand here and what we saw, because we've moved so many families down here, predominantly in new construction, and there's a reason for that. Aside from the assurances, aside from the fact that there's great incentives and all these newer builds have incredible amenities, because we do always often talk about the lifestyle aspect, super important to take in consideration. Do I want to be right next to the beach or on the beach, or do I want commercial amenities? So there's a neighborhood we talk about often, Wellen Park, which a predominant of our viewers, our clients, our friends move to, not just because it's an amazing product, not just because it's a great master plan community and all of the great bells and whistles like golf cart community, resort style living, restaurants in some of the respective places, but because of the sound construction. There's a lot that goes into planning an infrastructure, right? It's not just how solid the home is, but what about the roads around you? What about the drainage systems? What about your neighbor's home? Did they build a large retention wall that channels water all into your yard? That's part of the peace of mind of being in a master plan community, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Wellen Park, throughout all of the last 3 hurricanes we had, did extraordinarily well. And that's the benefit of new, up-to-date infrastructure. They've built this up to current code and beyond, so that they've built it so that it can last, it can endure, it can handle these big, extreme weather events and get through it. Just in the last couple days here, we've had incredible amounts of rain, but no flooding, no issues. An hour later, that water's already off and down into your pond. We've kind of needed it because it's been quite a drought down here. So the rain's been a good welcome. But know that you have those great irrigation systems, those ponds, those retention ponds to deal with that water. You have it, and it worked really, really well, especially in Wellen Park.
Now, people have been living here since the beginning of time. It's never been a secret that we have hurricanes. And obviously, people lived here before these high standard new construction neighborhoods. And what I can tell you is that codes have been pretty stringent for a long time. You can buy a home that was built in the mid-'80s, and that thing could be just as secure as a brand new construction. Granted, there's the new roof. Granted, the integrity was never compromised, and that homeowner put a lot of tender love and care. But what we've seen with a lot of these older homes, because we have that one phenomenon down here, snowbirds, people who fly down from Canada and all their cold, wintry states for several months, 4 or 5 months out of the year to live their best lives. So what we see is a lot of these homes, the integrity is intact because they make sure, well, since they're gone for such a long stretch, that they're battening down the hatches, that all of the maintenance is intact, and the mileage is very minimal on these homes. So maybe you're not someone who's positioned to get a new construction. And so that's where Caleb and our expertise come into play, because you're going to talk to an insurance company. You're going to talk to many, because insurance, you're going to shop around. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And we're going to get a little bit into more of the detail and dispel some of those fallacies that you hear out there, because there's just so much information out there. It's really hard to disseminate what's the truth from fiction. But we can tell you, I live in an older home. I've never had an issue to insure it, because it really comes down to the bones of the home, the shelf life of that roof, because that roof is keeping all of that water from penetrating, and of course the AC, those major components. But things you take in consideration are floodplains. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things that we really, really focus on when our customers are looking for homes are the floodplains. We ideally, we don't want to put you in a floodplain. Personally, I live in an AE flood zone. It's not the end of the world. You can still get insurance.
Well, before we go into flood, so the viewer understands their first time.
Sure.
The way the floodplains are broken up is your most ideal is X500.
The X and X500. You're well above your elevation. I believe is above 12 feet.
Above 12 feet.
So that you're minimizing the chances that you'll get flooded. That's where we ideally want to put all of our homeowners out of that flood zone in an X or an X500. So remember that when the time comes, and remember that's an important thing to consider when you're shopping, is always know the flood zones, and it's something that it's paramount in our process. Even the flood zone zones is very important, but simple things like where are the gutters on the street in reference to your house? So let's say you have a gutter out in front of your house. What's that mean? That means you're the low point on your street. So that means that's where water's going to pool up. If it is going to get flood, that's where it's going to be. So simple little things like that we want to pay attention to. And that's why you work with Lanir and I, because we're attention to detail when it comes to protecting you from that water that could eventually get into your home if we do have one of these extreme weather events.
And I can tell you that the stringent regulations that we have in place, they're above and beyond on par of any type of regulation anywhere in the world. But even in the last several years, the last couple years actually, with Helene and Milton, we experienced record-breaking rain. And, we aren't going to ignore the fact that sea levels are rising. We're not going to get into the reasons why, but they're rising. The water is higher. And so you're going to experience more coastal flooding. So what we've done, the government has done is they've changed some of the regulations. So depending on the age of the home, depending on where you are in that floodplain, you can now raise your home up. There were stipulations in place that prevented you from raising your home, especially if you lived on those coastal, like Manasota Key, for instance, or on Lido Key. But they've become realistic that climate is evolving, climate wobbles back and forth, and we have to adjust accordingly, because the last thing people want here in Florida is for anyone to invest and lose their big investment. So that's where we come into play. We understand how to place you in the appropriate home, but maybe you're someone who's been dreaming of that beachfront property, because we say it all the time. We deal with clients that are buying $20,000 lots or building $20 million estates, and we know that you've worked hard for it and you've been dreaming about it. So if you're looking maybe to build that dream home on a waterfront lot, we've got some great opportunities. Not only will find you that perfect lot, but Caleb and I we're working on several private projects with some amazing developers with all kinds of technologies that will withstand the worst of storms and give you the peace of mind that you're building a legacy home that you'll be able to pass down for generations. But let's talk about some of the opportunities between here and all the way up to Sarasota. There's a myriad of developments that give you all options for all price points.
Yeah, for sure. We talk about Lakewood Ranch a lot. Let's circling back to the hurricane theme. That's a great opportunity because you're 20 miles from the coastline. So you're not going to get that immediate impact of the hurricane. Those storm surges, not even a factor. Those strong winds that are really going to hit the coastline, you're not going to get that. It's the same thing. Lanir touched on it before with Wellen Park. The fact that you're 5, 6, 7 miles away from the coastline, all of those, the strongest winds that are coming off the Gulf, they're getting beat down by all of the vegetation, all of those trees. So by the time it gets to Wellen Park, it's not nearly as bad as it is when you're closer to the coastline, like on Manasota Key. So certainly there's great neighborhoods, like Lanir said, all the way from Sarasota to down to where we are, that with new construction everywhere, so you can get the home that's built well, out of a flood zone, most importantly, out of a flood zone, and then built well so that it can withstand anything that gets to wherever it may be, how far inland you decide. Whether you're on the coastline, you buy that great new construction, or we decide to build that new home, you're going to get the comfort of knowing that that home is built above and beyond current standards and can withstand any kind of these weather events that we get.
And when you're choosing real estate, when you're buying a home, we talk it often. We talk about it in our financial analysis when we're talking about the market. We understand that it comes down to micro markets. The same when it comes to weather patterns. It's a very blanketed approach when you see it on the news, and I don't blame you. You turn on the news and you see all this footage of someone canoeing through an intersection, and what they didn't show you is when they panned out, that person was just leisurely canoeing in circles. This is Florida. You're going to see Florida things. People are going to do some wild and crazy things, and the media is going to jump on it, and they're going to capture it, and they're going to give you that idea that everyone is getting around to and from to the grocery store in a canoe because we're just all prone to floods. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Let's put things into perspective. I used to live in Maryland. You'd have 4 seasons in one day. But one thing we got often that you can count on every winter were ice storms. So on top of that 1 foot of snow, we get a nice thin invisible sheet of ice, and at night they'd call it black ice, which is called death ice to some people. There's just no way of controlling your car, the amount of damage that's caused, the type of damage that happens to pipes in extreme weather. And let's talk about other areas where you have dry season and you have fires raging and floods and tornadoes. You're getting the idea. That sounds all scary, but I have friends who live in Oklahoma. They've never feared a tornado. I've lived in California. I've never experienced a fire. We've been here. Our homes haven't flooded away, but there are things that you have to take into consideration. It's the cost of living here in paradise. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what those costs are when it comes relative terms to a home. The cost of putting in those hurricane windows. Maybe you found a home that doesn't have hurricane grade options. How do you retrofit that home? Those are things that people think that it's an impossibility.
That was me. My home when I moved here was built in 2006. It didn't have hurricane windows. It didn't, the roof was getting older. It was getting a little bit dry, brittle. It was 18 years old, so it was kind of due for a change. And so we decided we're going to start upgrading our house. We didn't buy brand new. Kind of have a little bit of regrets that we didn't buy brand new that had all those assurances. But we said, all right, let's make the best out of our home. We love the home. We love the size of it. We love everything about it. So let's make it hurricane proof. So step one, hurricane windows. A good number if you're going to retrofit your home and you're going to use a third party to do it. Use about $1,000 per opening is what it's going to cost for your windows. So each one of your windows, regardless of the size, if it's a big window or a small window, that's going to be around $1,000. Your doorways, they're a bit more expensive. Those sliders, they get expensive. They're in that $3,000 to $5,000 range, depending on the size of your door. If you have a standard 6'6" door or an 8-foot door, obviously the 8-foot door would be a little bit more expensive. But these are things that you can do to your home. I'll tell you personally, through Helene and Milton last year, my home is completely hurricane proof right now with new roofs, new windows, new doors, all hurricane rated. And it was like a thunderstorm going by. It was like a rainy day. We were pretty much just looking out our windows. We knew that we were safe. We weren't going to have any leaks because we had an awesome, great new roof. We had awesome windows and doors. We were fine and nothing was going to happen. So we really pretty much last year's hurricanes, we just sat and enjoyed the day, took a day off and watched it. And it wasn't bad. Those hurricanes, what do we have? Power was out for only 24 hours. So I didn't even have time to fire up that generator. Everything was back and going before we even had to get into that phase. So it really wasn't that bad. And being prepared and preparing your home and investing in your home are absolutely something you need to do if you decide to buy a resale home that doesn't have that hurricane protection. And we can give you recommendations for contractors who you can use, great trusted contractors. I'll recommend the people that I used because they did such a great job, and I think they'll do a great job for you.
You see, this is the time of year you're going to turn on any media channel. They're going to start naming all kinds of storms. They start to really ramp up that emotion, that sensationalism. They understand what it does to the psychology of the buyer. They're trying to rattle the cage. They're trying to get views and ratings. Remember that. And I've got a couple names for these storms that I can't say on our channel because we're a family-friendly channel. But believe me, I have some internal names for these storms. But the truth is they're going to also tell you and make you fearful of none of these homes down here are insurable. And what we understand here is it's not a one-size-fits-all. When you're doing insurance, you have to think about the a la carte aspects. Certainly, you have your regular insurance, your homeowner's insurance for wear and tear, integrity, and maintenance. But beyond that, you have to get an additional hurricane insurance. That's something for sideways rain and wind, for wind damage. But on top of that, for peace of mind, you have to get flood insurance.
Don't have to. You can. Depends if you have a mortgage, you're required to have flood insurance. If you're not, if you're paying for your home outright, it's more of a peace of mind issue. My
stance is don't save drops and lose gallons.
Agreed.
If your home is out of a floodplain, if all those components that Caleb talked about for pre-construction to make it hurricane grade, then your insurance, that flood insurance, is going to be it's going to be very minimal in addition, but it gives you peace of mind that no matter what, because there's a difference between rain penetrating your roof and rising waters. Rising waters is flood. Rain penetrating your roof, that's hurricane and home insurance. So those are things we'll help you navigate, but it couldn't be further from the truth. I can tell you that before Hurricane Milton, my insurance went up. I could tell you that after the hurricane, just because I satisfied a certain threshold, my insurance went down. It's not always predicated on claims and hurricanes. It's predicated on the viability of that insurance company, the type of deal you have, what is your deductible. Those are all things that you have to take into consideration, and Caleb and I will help navigate it. But what it really comes down to is finding that perfect balance between the safety of the insurances and the incredible lifestyle that you're trying to live. Because ultimately, remember, we're coming down here to live that never-ending summer. So ignore all those hurricanes, ignore all the messaging, all the sensationalism, because from no matter where you are, the grass is always greener. No matter where you are, you can get into people's heads and make them fearful if they're not really here living it and breathing it themselves. But we can tell you, we've through several storms, we've endured it. Our clients are down here. I haven't heard of one case of any of our clients that had an issue with where we placed them. Matter of fact, we've heard the opposite. They were complimentary. They were thanking us for protecting their families, protecting their investments, and making sure that they can just come down here and live that never-ending summer. So let's focus on a couple of opportunities. We got that Wellen Park area, but what if someone wants to live on the island? What do they have to take in consideration? So one other thing just to take in consideration that they don't talk about, because we talked about floodplains, elevation, but one thing people don't realize is also emergency routes. You could be in a flood zone X, but part of your emergency route can be zone A. It's broken down in zone A, B, C, and D, and those are just priority routes. We've come up with these really smart systems that help funnel people out of the area who may be in harm's way, or maybe their path along the way is in harm's way. So they are taking the extra measure, the extra safety step to ensure that you're not stuck in traffic during the most tumultuous weather. So we have systems in place, we have infrastructures in place, we've got incredible builders, and we have great solutions. So if something here resonates, we know this wasn't all fun, this isn't all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. We have to be the ones that tell you the truth. We're not here to convince you to move down to Florida. We're here to make it possible and make it a reality.
Yeah, if you're somebody who's just dead set on moving to Florida, just like we were, and you know that you can get over hurricanes, and you just needed to hear it from two people that have lived through 3 hurricanes, we have. Yes, it was an inconvenience, but so is that snowstorm, so is that tornado, so is that those fires that they have out west. Those are huge conveniences, but yet you choose to live there and you love it there, and you sometimes forget those problems, and then you only focus on the ones where you would love to move, like hurricanes where we are, and you make it a little bit more than it needs to. And honestly, it truly isn't. It's something you buy smart, prepare for it, and then live well. That's really what it comes down to with hurricanes. It's just think about it.
Well said.
Yeah,
well said.
It's just, you got to think about things before you buy. Don't make an impulsive buy. Work with people like us that are going to slow down the process intentionally, because we want you to make a good decision, and we're here to help you make that.
Listen, Caleb and I, we come out with weekly videos discussing all the lifestyle, real estate developments, what it's like to endure storms, what it's like to be prepared. If you want to be the first to be notified, make sure you hit that bell and subscribe. We have endless resources discussing all of the Sarasota and greater region. And if you know anyone moving, anyone who has that fear that's holding them back from living the dream that we're living, share these resources. And if something resonates, what do they have to do, Caleb?
You have to absolutely give us a call, shoot us that text, or send us an email so we can start this process. Maybe even schedule a Zoom meeting, sit down with Lanir and I. We can hear your story and what you're trying to achieve so that we can get off on the right foot.
All right, so I think we've covered quite a bit. We want you down here living that never-ending summer. Screw the media, screw all the doom and gloom. Take our word for it. We are living our best lives, and we want you to do the same.
All right, so for This Week in Venice, Florida, I'm Caleb.
And I'm Lanir.
And we'll see you next week.